From the class of 1960 in the sports of football and baseball, Roger LeClaire.
The Division III mentality that you're not just a single sport athlete, academics and other components of your education were important to my dad. He was used to growing up in Agawam, not in Ohio State or Michigan and big-time football. It was a small campus, it was close to home, and he was able to do more than just play football. He was able to play football and baseball and participate in other things. My dad was a kicker and that was what he was known for, but what they don't realize was when my dad needed to practice, somebody had to get the ball back to him, and the story was that my mother could punt the football just as far as my dad could kick it. He dominated at Trinity on both sides of the ball. So when he got to the NFL, he was very versatile to the Bears. My dad as a pro was what you don't see today. He was an offensive player, he was a defensive player, he was a special teams player. My dad kicked the longest field goal in NFL history, 56 yards. Unfortunately, he only held it for a week because Tom Dempsey broke it the following week. That's part of the Trinity mystique. Division III, small college, and being able to go from there to the NFL, but then leaving, 7, 8 years in the NFL and then teaching and coaching for 30 years after that and having, an impact on other athletes and other student athletes.
From the class of 1978, in the sports of field hockey and women's lacrosse, Olivia Brown.
Even though we went co-ed in 1969, she arrived on campus in 1974, probably unsure as to whether we even had sports programs for her to participate. She was a pioneer. Olivia, in my opinion, really set the stage for where our field hockey and lacrosse programs are currently nationally ranked in NCAA competition. Without someone like Olivia Brown participating in more than one sport, our programs would not have grown. We needed that multi-sport female athlete. Very few stats, if any, were taken during the time Olivia was playing. What I can tell you is indicative of the kind of athlete she was. She won 2 of the most coveted senior awards. That was the first time they were given, and she won both of them. Without her efforts and perseverance, I don't really think our programs would be where they are today.
Trinity's head football coach from 1967 through 1998, and head softball coach from 1984 through 1991, Don Miller.
Coach Miller was recognized as an offensive genius when he was coaching Trinity College. But I think, for me, it's the lifelong lessons, the character building, the honor, the integrity, the respect, the concept of a group of young men pulling their talents for the good of the whole, trying to outperform a group of players from another team doing the same thing. There's an awful lot there. The single most important thing Coach Miller taught us was the ability to deal with adversity, spin it into the positive, and move forward in life. For all those years when we thought of Coach Miller as just our coach, now things have evolved where he is more than a coach. Now he's a true friend, and we all enjoy seeing Coach Miller whenever we can, whether it be at the football game, the golf outing, or anywhere on campus. Coach Miller gave everything he had for Trinity College. He was committed, he was focused, he was resilient. But I think more important than the wins and the great players and the great seasons, Coach Miller needs to be recognized as one of the finest educators Trinity College has ever known.
From the class of 1979, in the sport of men's ice hockey, George Brickley.
In Division III coaching, you only get this kind of talent maybe once, twice in a coaching career. And I don't think Trinity's ever had a player since him that had the hand skills that he's had. When he arrived, we didn't know he was of that caliber because we didn't recruit him. George just came to Trinity and then made a call to the rink in Glastonbury about when were hockey tryouts. I think he got a little mad at me and he quit. So I sent guys back to campus. I said, you will find him. He will bring him to practice tomorrow.
The hot one on the ice, that's 3 for Brickley, that's 52 points for Brickley.
By his junior year, he was 6'2", 190, 195. He'd worked out on the weights, he was strong, and he just became a dominant player because of his skating, his incredible stick handling ability, his soft hands, and most of all, his ability to score goals and finish.
Short-handed hat trick, I've never heard of anything like that. That's amazing. Nice.
He was able to use a fifth gear, which all the great ones have. So he was able to accelerate by defensemen. You'd think he was going full speed. George would just put it in another gear. You don't want to put a straitjacket on talent. So I've always subscribed to the motto that when you have a Picasso, you let him paint. And that's what we did with George, and he made us all proud.
From the class of 1985, in the sports of football and baseball, Joe Shield.
I always felt that he was a kind of a guy that would go to West Point. He was very humble, polite, didn't raise his voice very much, and a wonderful kid to work with. I spent a lot of time with him in quarterback meetings. He had that leadership quality that everybody knew that they could count on him game day. He had some scholarships in other places, but I knew he wanted to come to Trinity because he wanted a top education as well as playing football. As a freshman, Joe was technically the third quarterback. In the first game, the senior quarterback broke his jaw. The second team quarterback had to come out for a repair of the equipment. I sent Joe in and he never came out again. He played 4 solid years after that. Somewhere around his junior and senior year, pro scouts used to come in. As far as Greg, who was the coach at Green Bay at the time, really took a liking to Joe. We were so excited when he was drafted by the Green Bay Packers. He's one of the great athletes that ever came out of Trinity.
From the class of 1988, in the sports of field hockey, squash, and lacrosse, Ellie Pierce.
Ellie Pierce is the epitome of a Hall of Famer. She fit Trinity, and I think she knew that as soon as she stepped on our campus. She was a 3-sport All-American in field hockey, squash, and lacrosse. And their senior year, she was in Sports Illustrated Faces in the Crowd. On the field hockey field and lacrosse field, she was always being marked. Someone was assigned to stop the little kid with the red hair, and they couldn't do it. She thrived with competitive situations and the pressure, and there was a lot of pressure on her for 4 years. She ranks in the top 10 of female athletes to wear the Trinity jersey.
From the class of 1995, in the sports of women's basketball and softball, BJ Toolan Constantine.
I think it was very important to her to get a very good education, and Trinity certainly has an amazing academic record. She She just loves the game so very, very much and works so hard, and you knew she never wanted to stop playing. And I think that gave her impetus to keep working harder to play at the next level. She's so team-oriented, willing to help other teammates get better. And she was a fierce competitor in a very, very quiet way. She's a very intelligent young woman. She has great court sense, great basketball IQ. When she went on to Columbia to physical therapy school, she graduated #1 in her class and was a valedictorian, and a very, very tough program there. So as much as she plays very, very hard on the court, she works very, very hard in the classroom. The three-point shot came in, and she was a master shooter. She was an amazing shooter, and I think that just fed into everything that she wanted to do with basketball. We can't stop talking about it in Irvington, to be very, very honest with you. I think everybody in the town knows, and certainly everybody in the school knows about it. It's such a tribute and such a wonderful, wonderful thing to happen to this fine young woman. She's everything that women have fought for is about. She works, she's a homemaker, she's a wife, she's a coach, and she's a friend.
From the class of 1997, in the sports of football, wrestling, and track and field, Ray Jones.
Don't let that smile fool you. He was a tough person, and he could flip a switch that most athletes can't do. He loved the spotlight. He wanted the ball. He wanted to be out on the mat. He wanted to have the last jump to win. It looked like he was playing against little kids. He was just so much better than everybody else. He actually only rushed for 50 yards in the first half. So the fact that he got better through the game and literally put us on his back to win that game, his last game, and a game that meant a lot to so many people, it really speaks about the kind of person he was and the kind of athlete he was. Ray is really an artist, and I think that ultimately that is why he was such a good athlete, because he created art on the field. He loved to sing. The biggest football game of his career, when we played Amherst his senior year, 2 undefeated teams, Ray Jones sang the national anthem a cappella by himself in full uniform at the 50-yard line before that game. Ray loved to be able to deliver in those moments. He loved to perform. He loves to make people feel better. Ray is a Hall of Famer in so many ways, and he is a great friend. He's a great teammate, but athletically, he stood above the rest.
From the class of 2001, in the sport of women's track and field, Amanda Rival-Burnt.
To be a multi-event athlete, you have to have speed, power, and quickness, and she has all of those things. Mental toughness, the willingness to work, and willingness to go for a big goal. I can remember the football coach at the time telling his football athletes, if you worked as hard as Mandy does in the weight room, we would never lose a game.
As she came here as a freshman, she was ready to work and do anything that was going to be required to bring her where she wanted to be.
We knew she was a good high jumper and a good hurdler, and after she got here, Bill and I both thought that she could be a great heptathlete. Watching her win the national championship was special for me. We hadn't had too many national champions, and she did it, and she did it on the big stage.
She was as good as anybody that came before her, and knowing full well if she was challenged, she could meet it.
She worked for everything she got. She was a coach's dream. She was a hard worker, she was competitive, and she wanted to be the best.
From the class of 2004, in the sport of women's squash, Amina Hallel.
My first international recruit, Gail Davey, was from England, and she gave me a call saying that there was a player from England, Amina Hallel. who was very interested in coming to Trinity in January. I've of course said, well, how good is Amina? And she said, Wendy, she's going to knock the socks off of everybody. And my God, she did. What Amina achieved was just incredible, and to this day, we still haven't had a player that has won 2 individual championships and has led the team to winning 2 team championships. For all her achievements, both on the court and off the court, she was an extremely strong student. She was very humble, very down to earth, and just always a joy to be with. She cared very much about the team, and she was a real winner. She cared a great deal about the Trinity community. Everybody loved her. All the other coaches loved her, all the other players. She had such respect of everybody in the women's collegiate squash world. Amina truly was incredible.
From the class of 2008 in the sports of baseball and football, Tim Kiley.
He was so dominant for all 4 years on the mound as well as some time on the football field. The competitiveness aspect that he brought to the team and to everything he did, you know, from hearing him talk about and spending time with her, it was clear that came from his mom, who had a huge impact on his life and his baseball career. His ability to execute pitches all over the strike zone, as well as I think when he needed to, he just had a breaking ball that was so advanced. I think the combination of those two really made him, you know, at times perfect. Going into his 7th or 8th start of the year at Tufts, he hadn't walked anyone all year. And when he walked his first guy in that game, first guy of the season, their stands and dugout erupted as if they had won the game when he had just merely let someone on first base. So I think that speaks for itself.
The 2008 NCAA Division III Baseball Championship.
People ask you where you went to school, what year you graduated, and you know what sport you played, and they remember the team and they ask about it. It really goes to show you how much, you know, people noticed how special that group was.
Trinity wins the national championship for
I think Tim and I would both agree that it was probably the best year of our life.
Can you believe it?
In my mind, Tim was the best player on the best team in school history.